My name is Amanda Wilson. I'm 40 years old, and I live in San Jose with my boyfriend and my sweet daughter, Anna, who's 12 now. From the outside, my life looks like something people would point at and say, she made it. I run a tech company that builds supply chain management software. We're not a giant, but we've carved out a name in the industry, enough to keep our lives stable, comfortable, and predictable. My boyfriend helps me run the company too. He handles HR and finance, the kind of person who can look at a chaotic spreadsheet and somehow turn it into a plan. He's the calm, organizing brain behind everything we do. And Anna is the kind of kid who makes you believe the world can still be soft. She's smart. She pulls straight A's without even trying too hard, and she has this weirdly natural talent for computer science that makes me proud in a way I can't even explain. Like she was born already knowing how to solve puzzles the rest of us don't even see. We live in a white two-story house with a small garden in a quiet suburb. Most Sundays, we cook breakfast together, then bike around the lake nearby. Sometimes, when we pass other families, I catch people smiling at us, like we're a postcard. But here's the truth. In my heart, my parents stopped existing 3 years ago. Most people don't understand that sentence. They hear it and think it's just a dramatic way of saying we don't talk much. So I give them the simple version. When someone asks about Anna's grandparents, I smile politely and say, we're not in touch. They don't know that behind that little answer is a memory that still wakes me up some nights, my heart pounding like it's trying to break out of my ribs. Because 3 years ago, my parents abandoned my daughter at an airport. Not by accident, not because of confusion. They left her behind like she was an extra bag they didn't feel like carrying. And the worst part? She was only 9. If you want to understand how we got there, how the people who raised me became capable of something like that, you have to understand the family dynamic I grew up swallowing like it was normal. My parents live about 40 minutes from us, in the same house they bought over 30 years ago. My dad, Robert, worked in construction for 4 decades, started as a regular worker, ended up a senior manager. My mom, Linda, was an elementary school teacher until she retired. They weren't bad people in the obvious ways. They weren't cruel in public. They weren't the kind of parents you could easily point at and accuse. They were biased, quietly, constantly. They favored my sister Morgan. Morgan is the kind of person who always seems to be falling apart in a way that makes everyone rush to catch her. Even before her divorce, she had this talent for being the one who needed more. And after she became a single mom, my parents clung to her, like rescuing her gave their lives purpose. Morgan's wants were treated like emergencies. Her problems were treated like the family's responsibility. And I was expected to understand. I told myself it wasn't worth fighting over. I convinced myself for years that family shouldn't break apart over small things. I didn't realize I was calling the pieces of myself small things. The European trip started as an innocent idea. I remember the night clearly, a weekend in May 2022. Anna had just finished the school year and started summer break, so we had a family dinner at my parents' house. It was supposed to be simple. Food, small talk, the usual. Morgan was there too, along with her daughter, Harper, 8 years old at the time. Harper was sweet, quiet, and always trying to read the room like a little adult because she'd learned early that adults could change moods fast. We were sitting at the table, eating my dad's specialty grilled meat, when Dad suddenly set down his knife and fork. The sound was sharper than it should have been. Conversation stopped. He looked around the table like he was about to announce something big and noble. I think it's time for the whole family to travel together, he said. Your mom and I are retired now, and the kids are on summer break. At first it sounded perfect. They worked their whole lives. They deserve something beautiful. And it would be good for Anna too. Time with grandparents, memories that felt warm and safe. I started to nod along until I felt my boyfriend's hand touch mine under the table. Not squeezing, just grounding. I looked at him, and I saw the worry in his eyes. The kind of worry you get when you're thinking about a deadline that can't be moved. We had a major project at work, a 3-month stretch where both of us had to be fully present, every day, because if something went wrong, the whole company could take a hit. My boyfriend's gaze was gentle but clear. We can't. So when the excited chatter at the table settled, he gave me a small nod, like permission to say what we both already knew. I cleared my throat. I'm afraid we can't join, I said, keeping my voice steady. Our company has an important project for the next 3 months. We have to monitor progress closely. The atmosphere deflated instantly, like I'd punctured a balloon. Harper's face fell. She looked up at Morgan like she was silently begging her mom to fix it. And then my mom reached over and patted Anna's hand. How about letting Anna come with us, Linda said, her eyes warm, voice sweet. Your dad, me, and Morgan will take really good care of her. Anna and Harper will have a wonderful time together." Anna's eyes lit up like someone had turned on a switch inside her. She loved her grandparents. She trusted them in a way only a child can, blindly, fully, without defense. And I wanted to say yes. I wanted to give her that joy. But something in me hesitated. Not enough to stop me, just enough to leave a tiny itch of unease under my skin. After dinner, I pulled my boyfriend aside on the front porch. The night air smelled like grilled meat and early summer grass. He squeezed my hand and said softly, "I think we should sponsor the trip for your parents and Anna. Let them have this. Let Anna have this." I studied his face. He wasn't saying it because he didn't care about the money. He was saying it because he cared about the people. And that's what I loved about him. He added, "Your parents worked hard. They deserve new experiences. And Anna, she'll remember it forever." For a moment, I let myself imagine it. Anna laughing in a different country. Postcards, souvenirs, photos. A story she'd tell someday when she was grown. So I nodded. When we went back inside, everyone was waiting like a jury. I stood in the living room and said, "We've decided to sponsor this European trip for my parents and Anna. It'll be our gift for Mom and Dad's retirement." Mom's face lit up. Dad smiled, rare, satisfied, like he'd won something. Morgan sat quietly, her expression pinched, like she was holding back disappointment. Then she finally spoke, hesitant. I'm afraid I can't join," she said. "I want to go with Harper too, but after the divorce, my finances aren't stable." And before I could even respond, my dad leaned forward, eyes bright with expectation. "Amanda," he said, "you're doing so well for yourself. Why don't you sponsor Morgan and Harper too? This could be a memorable family trip." There it was, that familiar pressure. The unspoken rule, Amanda can afford it, so Amanda should. I felt irritation flare hot in my chest. That wasn't a small amount of money. 5 people, including 2 kids, plus hotels and tours. But my boyfriend's hand touched my arm gently. A quiet signal. Stay calm. So I forced my voice steady. "We need time to think," I said. "That's a lot of money." Morgan went quiet, staring down at her hands. My parents nodded like they were being reasonable. But I could feel the weight behind their silence. They weren't agreeing. They were waiting. Because they knew exactly how to make me feel guilty later. That night, back in our quiet house, the air felt heavy. I tried to scroll through work emails on my laptop, but my mind was stuck on my parents' table, my dad's expectant eyes, my mom's sweet voice that always seemed to sharpen when money was involved. Anna padded into the living room in her pajamas, her brown hair still damp from her shower. She climbed onto the sofa beside me and touched my hand. "Mom," she whispered, voice soft and excited, "I really want to travel with Grandma and Grandpa. I want beautiful memories with them before I grow up and get too busy." Something in my chest melted. Anna always had that power, the ability to soften me just by being honest. After I kissed her goodnight and tucked her into bed, I went back out to the living room. My boyfriend was waiting with 2 cups of coffee. We sat in silence for a while, just listening to each other breathe. Then he said quietly, "I know you're thinking about the money, but maybe we can sponsor part of Harper's cost. That poor girl shouldn't be left behind. Morgan can handle her own share." I stared into my coffee like the answer might float to the top. Morgan had borrowed money from me before, many times, without paying it back. But Harper didn't deserve to suffer because her mom was irresponsible. So finally I exhaled and nodded. "I'll call Mom tomorrow," I said. "We'll pay for Dad, Mom, Anna, and Harper. Morgan has to handle her own part." At the time, it felt like a compromise. A fair one. A kind one. I didn't know I was stepping onto the first stone of my biggest regret. The next morning, I called my mom and told her the decision. Silence on the line. Then Linda exhaled in a way that made disappointment sound like she was trying to hide it. "Fine," she said slowly. "Your dad and I will handle Morgan's part." And then, like she couldn't help herself, she added, "Poor Morgan, already a single mom and not even loved by her family." It hit like a needle. That wasn't new. Mom had always been able to twist things, so I sounded heartless for having boundaries. My grip tightened on the phone. "Mom," I said firmly, "I've helped Morgan a lot in the past. If you keep talking like this, I'll cancel the trip." That shut her down immediately. Her voice flipped from reproachful to panicked. "I was just saying," she rushed. "We'll handle it. You transfer the money so I can book hotels and tours. Send Anna's information, too." And before I could even respond, she hung up. I stared at my phone, irritation mixing with something colder. Unease. The way she demanded money like a deadline. The way she cut the call like I was a bank teller, not her daughter. But I told myself I was overthinking. No matter how biased they were, they wouldn't harm Anna. 5 minutes later, I transferred $15,000 to my mom and sent Anna's information. In my heart, I still believed this trip would give Anna beautiful memories. I couldn't imagine it would become the thing that broke our family forever. Half a month later, the trip began. Anna was nonstop excitement, talking about places she wanted to visit, souvenirs she'd bring back, foods she'd try. They chose an early 9 a.m. flight, which meant my boyfriend and I would be at work. The night before, at my parents' request, we brought Anna to their house so they could leave early in the morning. She had her small pink suitcase packed. Her cheeks were glowing with anticipation. When we left, she waved goodbye like she was already living inside the adventure. I hugged her tight. Video call every day, I promised. She nodded so fast it made me laugh. The next morning around 8 a.m., I video called to make sure they'd reached the airport safely. The screen showed my parents, Morgan, Harper, and Anna, sitting together in the waiting area. Anna wore her favorite red jacket and held a small book she always read when traveling. When she saw me, she grabbed the phone from Grandma's hand and waved, grinning. "Mom, I'm about to get on the plane," she said brightly. "I promise I'll buy gifts for you and—" She glanced off screen, smiling. "For him, too." My boyfriend leaned into frame and waved back, telling her to be safe. Everything looked normal. Safe. I ended the call feeling lighter, believing I'd done something good. I went back to work and tried to focus on financial reports. But at 11 a.m., an unknown number appeared on my phone screen. Normally, I wouldn't answer, but something in my gut went cold. I pressed accept. "Hello, is this Amanda Wilson?" a professional female voice asked. "Yes," I said, already bracing. "This is airport security," she continued. "We need you to come to the airport immediately. There's a 9-year-old girl here who appears to have been abandoned. She refused to speak at first, but she gave us your phone number and said you're her mother." For a second, my brain refused to process the words. "Abandoned? That's impossible," I whispered. "I just video called her with her grandparents and aunt a few hours ago." The security officer agreed to a video call to confirm identity. The screen lit up, and there, inside a security room, was Anna, huddled in a chair like she was trying to fold into herself. Her face was red and soaked with tears, hair messy, eyes wide with fear. Her pink suitcase sat beside her like the only thing she trusted. The moment she saw me, she shot up, trembling. "Mom," she choked. And then she broke, crying so hard her small shoulders shook. My chest tightened like someone was crushing it. "Anna," I said quickly, fighting to keep my voice steady. I'm coming right now. Don't be scared. I'll be there in 20 minutes." I ended the call and stood so fast my chair nearly toppled. My coworkers looked up, startled, but I was already moving, heart pounding, hands shaking. The image of my daughter sobbing burned into my vision. As I rushed to my car, I called my boyfriend. The moment he answered, I said, "It's Anna. She's at airport security. They say she was abandoned." I heard his breath catch. "I'm leaving now," he said immediately. "No questions. No hesitation. Drive safe. I'll meet you there." And as I sped towards the airport, one thought kept looping in my mind like a nightmare I couldn't wake from. What happened between 8 a.m. and 11 a.m.? Because I had seen her with them. I had seen my parents sitting beside her. So if Anna was alone now, that meant someone chose to leave her. And I was about to find out why. The airport felt like another world when I got there. Too bright, too loud, too indifferent. People moved in clean lines, dragging suitcases, laughing into phones, sipping coffee like nothing in the universe could possibly be wrong. And I wanted to scream at all of them. "Don't you know my child was left behind here? Don't you feel it in the air?" I ran. Not fast like a person in a hurry, fast like a mother chasing the edge of a cliff. When I shoved open the security office door, I saw Anna first. She was sitting on a chair, her small hands death gripping the handle of her pink suitcase like it was a shield. Her cheeks were blotchy, her eyes swollen and red, hair stuck to her forehead with sweat and tears. The second she saw me, she jumped up and launched herself into my arms. "Mom!" she cried, voice cracking like glass. I wrapped her up so tightly my own arms hurt. I could feel her trembling through her jacket. She clung to me like she was afraid I might disappear too. "I'm here," I whispered, pressing my lips to the top of her head. "I'm right here. You're safe now. You're safe." And then I heard footsteps behind me, rapid, uneven. My boyfriend rushed in, face pale, eyes scanning the room like he was looking for the thing that hurt her, so he could tear it apart with his bare hands. When he saw Anna in my arms, his expression crumpled for half a second. Then he dropped to his knees beside us and gently touched Anna's shoulder. "Hey, kiddo," he said softly. "You did so good. You're okay now." Anna looked at him with that dazed, frightened stare children get after something too big happens to them. Then she nodded, small, shaky, and buried her face back into my chest. Behind us, a security officer stood with sympathetic eyes. Middle-aged, professional posture, but her expression had the kind of anger you only see on someone who's witnessed something unforgivable. "My name is Rachel," she said. "I'm the one who called you." I forced myself to breathe. My body wanted to explode, but Anna needed me calm. Rachel continued, voice steady. Around 10 o'clock, a passenger reported seeing a little girl sitting alone near the gate, crying. When we approached, she wouldn't tell us anything at first. She just sat there with her suitcase like she was trying not to fall apart. My boyfriend's jaw tightened. Rachel nodded toward a computer screen. "We checked the cameras. We have footage of Anna sitting alone. Would you like to see it?" The part of me that wanted to protect my child from anything painful screamed no, but the part of me that needed to know the truth forced my head to nod. Rachel clicked a few buttons. The video popped up, and there she was, my daughter, walking back toward the waiting area holding water bottles in both hands. She looked proud at first, like she'd completed an important mission. She scanned the seats, searching. Then her steps slowed. Her head turned left, right, left again. The pride drained from her face. Confusion replaced it, then worry, then terror. She sat down, clutching her suitcase, her eyes darting across strangers, like she was trying to find a familiar face inside an ocean of people who didn't care. I felt my throat close. Next to me, my boyfriend covered his mouth with his hand, staring at the screen like he couldn't believe a human being could do this to a child. I turned away first, because if I stared any longer, I was going to break apart completely. Anna shifted in my arms. "Mom?" she whispered. I swallowed hard and smoothed her hair back. "I'm here, baby. I'm not going anywhere." Rachel shut off the video, her eyes softer now. When we found her, she'd been alone for a while. We brought her here, tried to calm her down. She eventually gave us your number. I looked down at Anna. "Sweetheart, tell me what happened." Her bottom lip trembled. For a second, she didn't speak, like the memory was stuck somewhere in her throat. Then she took a breath so shaky it sounded like pain. "We were waiting at the gate," she whispered. "Grandpa said, he said everyone was thirsty." My stomach tightened. "He told me to go buy water," she continued. "The vending machines were far, and there was a line. I bought 5 bottles, one for Grandma, Grandpa, Aunt Morgan, Harper, and me." Her hands clenched around my shirt like she was holding on for dear life. "When I came back, they were gone," she said, voice cracking. "Gone. All of them. I thought they went to the bathroom. I waited. I kept waiting, but they didn't come back." Tears welled in her eyes again. "I was so scared," she whispered. I thought nobody wanted me anymore." That sentence hit me like a punch. My boyfriend's hand tightened on my shoulder. I could feel his anger like heat coming off him. I looked at Rachel. "I need to report this," I said, voice suddenly sharp. "This wasn't a mistake." Rachel nodded slowly. "You have every right to." I pulled out my phone. My hands shook as I dialed. When the operator answered, my voice came out hard, too controlled, too cold. "I need to report an intentional child abandonment," I said. "My daughter's grandparents and aunt left her at the airport. She's 9 years old." Anna flinched at the word abandonment, like she understood it more than she should. I wrapped my arm tighter around her and forced my voice softer. "It's okay, baby. You didn't do anything wrong. They did." 30 minutes later, 2 police officers arrived. They were calm, professional. The kind of calm that makes you feel like you're screaming inside a glass box, while everyone else is breathing normally. One officer, male, took my statement. The other, female, spoke quietly with Rachel and asked Anna questions in a gentle voice. Anna had to tell her story again, her voice small, exhausted. "I was only gone for a few minutes," she said. "When I came back, nobody was there." I watched my daughter talk and felt something inside me crack. A mother is supposed to keep the world safe for her child, and I had handed my child to people who treated her like she was disposable. The male officer flipped through his notebook. "Ma'am, can you provide the flight number and airline information for their trip?" I nodded quickly. My mom texted it earlier. I scrolled through messages, fingers fumbling. Found the confirmation. Gave them everything. The female officer stepped out to verify details with airline staff. While she was gone, Rachel provided the security footage and timestamps. The male officer asked more questions. "Were there any previous issues with the grandparents?" he asked. My mouth went dry. There were always issues. Favoritism, manipulation, guilt trips, but nothing that screamed, "They'll leave a child behind in public." I forced my voice steady. "They favored my sister." They've always treated my sister like she needs saving, but I never thought they'd hurt Anna." The officer nodded, writing. 15 minutes later, the female officer returned. Her face had changed. Not panicked, not shocked. Serious. She leaned toward her colleague and murmured something in his ear. His posture stiffened immediately. Then they both turned to me. The female officer's voice was gentle, but the words were brutal. "Ms. Wilson, we checked the passenger list for the flight you provided." I held my breath. "There are 4 tickets under the names Robert Wilson, Linda Wilson, Morgan Wilson, and Harper Wilson," she said. My mind struggled to catch up. 4. Then she continued. "There is no Anna Wilson listed on the passenger manifest." For a moment, I genuinely didn't understand what she meant, because my brain refused to accept the possibility. Then the meaning slammed into me like a wave of ice water. They never bought her a ticket. Not from the start. They had known. They had planned it. My boyfriend whispered, "Oh my God," and put an arm around Anna, pulling her closer to him. Anna looked up, confused. She didn't understand the logistics. She didn't understand manifests. All she understood was the tension in the room and the way adults' faces changed when something terrible was confirmed. I stared at the officer. That's impossible," I said weakly. "I sent her information. I paid for the trip. The male officer's expression hardened. "Ma'am, this isn't ordinary abandonment. If she wasn't on the passenger list, that suggests premeditation." Premeditation. That word felt like a nail being hammered into my chest. Rachel's voice was tight. "So they sent her away to buy water and left while she was gone," she said. "They knew she couldn't board. They didn't want her to." My throat burned. I wanted to run outside and vomit. I wanted to set the world on fire. But Anna was still holding on to me, still trembling, still trying to understand why her family disappeared. The female officer continued. "We'll be filing a report and contacting Child Protective Services. CPS will need to visit your home today to assess Anna's safety and emotional condition. This is mandatory in all child abandonment cases." I nodded numbly, even though anger rose again. CPS checking me. The mother who raced here the moment she got the call, because my parents chose to do something monstrous. It felt unfair. It felt humiliating. But I didn't care. I would let 1,000 agencies inspect my life if it meant my child stayed protected. The officers finished procedures, collected footage, and promised they would open an investigation immediately. When they left, the security office suddenly felt too quiet. Anna rested her head on my shoulder, exhausted. My boyfriend rubbed her back gently. I looked down at my daughter's face, still damp, still scared. And something settled inside me. Not just anger, a decision. I wasn't going to let this be a story where they walked away with excuses. I wasn't going to let them spin it as an accident or Anna being too slow. They were going to face consequences. That afternoon, around 3:30, the doorbell rang at our house. CPS arrived. A woman named Jennifer Wilson, no relation, around 50, short brown hair, glasses, calm eyes that looked like she'd seen too many broken children. She sat across from us in the living room, folder in her lap. "I received a report from the police department," she said professionally. "The purpose of my visit is to ensure Anna is safe and assess the psychological impact of this incident." Anna hugged a pillow on the sofa, eyes lowered. Jennifer turned toward her with a soft smile. "Anna, can you tell me what happened this morning? I'm here to help." Anna looked at me, silently asking permission. I nodded, forcing encouragement into my face even though my stomach was still twisted. Anna spoke quietly. Jennifer listened, took notes, asked gentle questions. Then Jennifer asked to speak privately with us. I sent Anna to her room with a kiss to her forehead. At the kitchen table, Jennifer's expression grew serious. "This is a severe case," she said. "Intentionally leaving a 9-year-old child in a public place can lead to criminal charges. I will be reporting this to the prosecutor." My boyfriend's hand slid into mine under the table. I took a deep breath. "We want them held accountable," I said. "Anna could have been taken, hurt. Anything could have happened." Jennifer nodded. "I'll continue monitoring, and I strongly recommend trauma counseling for Anna immediately." When she left, I watched her car disappear down our street. Relief mixed with something darker. Because now the legal system was moving, and I was going to push it forward with everything I had. I looked at the clock. 4 p.m. According to the schedule, my parents and Morgan had likely already arrived in Paris. Probably smiling. Probably taking photos. Probably calling it a family vacation. Anna had fallen asleep on the sofa, drained from crying. My boyfriend sat beside her, stroking her hair carefully. He looked up at me. "I'll stay here," he said quietly. "You do what you need to do." I nodded. Then I walked into my office, closed the door, and turned on my call recording app. My finger hovered over my dad's contact. For a moment, I hesitated, because some part of me still wanted to believe there was an explanation. Something reasonable. Something that didn't make my parents monsters. But the passenger list had already told me the truth. I pressed call. It rang 3 times. Then Dad answered, cheerful, with street noise in the background like laughter in traffic. "Amanda, we just got to the hotel. Paris is amazing." The casual happiness in his voice made my blood boil. I kept my tone unnaturally calm. "Dad, why did you leave Anna at the airport?" A silence, then faint whispering, like he was covering the phone to tell the others. His voice returned, defensive. "Listen, Amanda, that kid was too slow. We couldn't miss our flight because of her." My hand tightened around the phone so hard my knuckles whitened. Then the phone shifted, and my mom's voice came on, loud, reproachful, familiar. "Anna was buying water for 20 minutes, she snapped. 20 minutes. We waited as long as we could." I forced out words through clenched teeth. 20 minutes? And why wasn't her name on the passenger list? A long silence. The kind of silence that screams guilt. I felt my control slipping. "Tell me the truth," I said, voice shaking now. "You never bought her a ticket, did you?" More whispering. Then Dad came back on, and what he said next made my stomach drop. "Yes," he said flatly. "That's right." Like it was normal. Like it was a decision about luggage weight. "That's right," he repeated. "We all agreed." My throat went cold. "You agreed to leave my daughter?" His voice turned stern, like I was the unreasonable one. "Your daughter was too slow." I couldn't breathe. I couldn't hear anything except the roaring in my ears. My daughter, 9 years old, alone in a crowded airport. And they were saying it like she deserved it. My voice broke. "Do you know what she went through? She was so scared she couldn't even talk to security. She thought nobody wanted her anymore. And then..." The phone shifted again. Morgan's voice came on, colder than ice. "Stop blowing everything out of proportion," she said. "You picked her up. What's the big deal?" Something inside me snapped. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was unreal. My voice went low, unfamiliar even to me. "Great," I said softly. "From now on, Morgan, you and I are no longer family." I ended the call before they could say another word. My hands shook as I set the phone down. They weren't sorry. Not one of them had asked if Anna was okay. Not one. I stared out the window at the backyard where Anna used to play like the world was safe. And I realized something terrifyingly clear. If I didn't become the villain in their story, my daughter would remain the victim in ours. I turned back to my desk, and I dialed the only person I trusted to help me do this right. My lawyer. James Harris answered on the second ring. "Amanda?" His voice shifted instantly, warm to alert. "What's going on? You never call me this late unless something's wrong." I didn't waste time. I told him everything. From my parents' retirement dinner, to the trip plan, to the $15,000 transfer, to the airport security room, to Anna's trembling voice whispering that she thought nobody wanted her anymore. And then I told him about the passenger list. No Anna. And finally, I told him about the call I recorded. My father admitting, without hesitation, that they all agreed to leave my child behind. There was a long pause on the line. I heard James breathe out slowly, like he was trying to keep his own anger from spilling into his voice. "Amanda," he said, measured and sharp, "what they did is illegal on multiple levels. Child abandonment is a serious criminal offense, but the fact that they didn't purchase a ticket for Anna, that suggests intent. That's not negligence, that's premeditation." The word hit again, like it enjoyed hurting me. Premeditation. James continued. "And the money, the trip money. If it was transferred under the understanding that Anna was included, that could open fraud issues too, depending on how it's documented." My throat tightened. "I want them held accountable," I said, "but I want my money back." James didn't interrupt, because he knew what I meant. My family's cruelty didn't start at the airport. The airport was just the moment their mask slipped off completely. "I've lent them money for years," I said, voice low. "They always promised to pay it back. They never did. And I kept telling myself it wasn't worth a fight. That family..." I stopped because the word family suddenly felt poisonous. James's voice softened slightly. "Do you have records? Texts? Emails? Bank transfers?" I stared at my laptop. I stared at the folder I'd been avoiding for years, one I told myself was just for organization. A folder full of screenshots, messages, transaction confirmations, evidence I'd collected like a paranoid person, even while still trying to convince myself I was being generous. "Yes," I said, "I have everything." "Then send me everything," James said, "tonight." My hands were still shaking, but something else took shape inside me. Something steadier than rage. Control. For the first time since that airport call, I felt like I could do something besides bleed. That night, after Anna finally fell asleep in our bed with a nightlight on, her hand clamped around my boyfriend's wrist like a lifeline, I sat in my office and opened my bank account history. The screen glowed cold and unforgiving. My boyfriend hovered in the doorway quietly, like he didn't want to disturb the part of me that had turned into steel. "You don't have to do this all in one night," he murmured. "I do," I said without looking away. "If I stop, I'll start doubting myself again." He didn't argue. He just stepped closer and set a cup of tea beside me, the way he always did when he knew I was headed into a storm. I started from the earliest year I could. The first transfer wasn't huge, $800. Morgan needed help after a rough month. Then another, $1,200 for Harper's daycare. Then $2,500 because her car broke down. Then a larger one, $10,000 because she was behind on rent after the divorce, and my mother called me crying like Morgan was about to be homeless in the street. Every time I hesitated, my mother's voice would sharpen into that familiar guilt. "She's your sister, Amanda. She's alone. She has a child." And every time I caved, I told myself I was doing it for Harper. But the pattern didn't stop with Morgan. My parents had borrowed too. At first, it was for small repairs. Then bigger. I found the transfer from 2018, $50,000. Storm damage, roof repair. My dad's message was still there. "We'll pay you back, sweetheart. Just need time." I remembered how proud he sounded saying it, like making a promise was the same as keeping one. Then another large transfer, $35,000 to Morgan for a new car because she needed something reliable for Harper. Then $20,000 to my parents because Dad wanted to invest in the house. Each transaction had a story attached to it, and every story came with the same ending. I paid. They promised. Nothing returned. By the time I finished organizing everything into an Excel sheet, sorted by date, amount, recipient, and reason, my eyes burned from staring at the screen. I calculated the totals twice because I didn't believe it the first time. Morgan, $130,000. My parents, $200,000. $200,000. It felt like a slow-motion punch. Not because of the money itself, we'd been fortunate in business, but because every number was a moment I'd been manipulated into proving my love. I attached the spreadsheet to an email. Then I attached screenshots of their messages. Then I attached the transfer confirmations. Then I attached the audio recording from Paris, my father's voice saying, "That's right, we all agreed." My finger hovered over send. I heard Anna whimper softly in the bedroom down the hall, and I sent it. James called me back within minutes. His tone was professional, but I could hear the shock underneath. "Amanda," he said, "this is substantial." And the way they requested money, consistently, paired with those written promises to repay, this can absolutely be framed as loans they're obligated to repay. "What about the airport?" I asked. James's voice hardened. "The criminal side will be handled by the prosecutor's office and CPS involvement. But on the civil side, we can move quickly. We can draft a demand notice for repayment, a deadline. If they ignore it, we file suit." "Do it," I said instantly. There was a pause. James didn't say, "Are you sure?" because he knew better. He simply said, "Okay, I'll draft it tonight and have it served to their home address. 1 month." 1 month, I repeated, tasting it like a countdown. "And Amanda," James added quietly, "make sure you keep all communication documented from this point forward. No phone calls unless recorded. No informal agreements. They'll try to manipulate you." I laughed without humor. "They've been manipulating me my whole life." James sighed. "Now we stop letting them." When I ended the call, I sat back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. The house was silent except for the soft hum of the fridge and the distant sound of my daughter's breathing. My boyfriend appeared in the doorway. He didn't ask for details. He just looked at me, eyes steady, face calm. And I realized something. I wasn't doing this alone. He walked over and rested a hand on my shoulder. "I'm proud of you," he said simply. My throat tightened again, but this time it wasn't rage. It was the relief of being seen. The next week passed in a strange, fragile quiet, like our home had become a sanctuary that the outside world couldn't touch. We cut back our work hours. We rearranged meetings. We made the company adapt to us, for once, because Anna needed us more than any project ever could. We found a therapist recommended by CPS, Dr. Marshall, a childhood trauma specialist. The first session, Anna sat with her knees pulled to her chest, refusing to speak. The second session, she asked one question in a voice so small it nearly broke me. Did they leave me because I was bad? I wanted to tear the air apart. My boyfriend held her hand and said softly, "No, they left you because something is wrong with them, not you." I watched my daughter absorb those words like someone learning a new language, the language of not blaming herself for other people's cruelty. At home, we changed routines without saying it out loud. We stopped letting her walk out of sight in crowded places. We kept a hand on her shoulder when we were out. We installed a doorbell camera system, not because we were paranoid, but because my body couldn't tolerate feeling unprotected again. Some nights, Anna woke up crying, and she'd run into our room, climbing into the middle of the bed like she needed to build a wall around herself with our bodies. I would stroke her hair until her breathing slowed, and every time I thought the same thing. They did this to her. During that same week, James updated me regularly. The prosecutor's office was gathering evidence: the airport security footage, Rachel's statement, the police reports, and the recorded phone call with my family. James told me they were considering formal charges: child abandonment, possibly fraud. And then, at the end of that week, James called with a short, clipped tone that told me something important had shifted. "The demand notice was delivered," he said, "signed for." I pictured my mother opening the envelope, reading the words, and feeling the first crack of real fear. Good, because fear was the only language my family ever seemed to understand. A few days later, my parents and Morgan returned from Europe. According to James, they received the notice the moment they got home, and they panicked. I didn't know the details yet because James had warned me not to engage, but I felt it, like the air was charging itself for a storm. Then, 2 days after they returned, it happened. Saturday afternoon. The house was quiet. Anna was coloring at the kitchen table. My boyfriend was cooking pasta. The smell of garlic and butter filled the air, almost normal. Then the doorbell rang. Not once, not politely. It rang again, and again, and again. My boyfriend froze, wooden spoon in hand. Anna's head snapped up, her eyes going wide. I felt her fear before she even spoke. "Mom?" she whispered. I swallowed, forcing calm into my voice. "Go to your room, sweetheart," I said gently. "Close the door. You're safe." Her hands trembled as she stood, but she obeyed. My boyfriend wiped his hands and moved toward the security monitor. He turned the screen slightly toward me. 4 figures stood outside our front door. My father, stiff posture, jaw tight. My mother, red eyes, pale face, like she'd been crying. Morgan, tense, chewing her lip like she was already preparing her next lie. And Harper, standing slightly behind her mother, confused and frightened. I felt my stomach drop, not because I was scared of my parents, but because I knew exactly what they were going to do. They were going to use Harper. They always did. My boyfriend's voice was low. "Do you want me to handle it?" I shook my head. "No," I said. "They're here because they think they can break me. They need to see they can't." I grabbed my phone and texted James. "They're at my door. I'm turning on cameras." Then I opened the app and made sure every angle was recording. Because if my family had taught me anything, it was this: people lie, but cameras don't. I took a breath, opened the door, and I didn't step aside. I didn't invite them in. I stood in the doorway like a boundary made of bone. My father spoke first, voice controlled but sharp. "You can't do this to your own family, Amanda. We need to talk." I stared at him, cold and still. "You gave up the right to call us family when you abandoned my child," I said. My mother's face crumpled instantly. Tears spilled. "Amanda, honey," she pleaded, voice shaking. "We made a mistake, but you can't sue your parents. We're blood." I didn't move. Morgan stepped forward, eyes darting, calculating. Then she did exactly what I predicted. She placed a hand on Harper's shoulder and gently pushed her forward, like a human shield. "Amanda," Morgan said, voice syrupy, "think about Harper. If I get arrested, who will take care of her? I'm a single mom. She needs me." Harper looked up at me with innocent eyes, and for half a second my heart twisted, because Harper didn't deserve any of this. But I also saw the truth. Morgan wasn't protecting Harper. She was weaponizing her. My boyfriend stepped up behind me, his presence steady like an anchor. My dad's voice turned threatening. "Do you know what this will do? People will talk. Your company's reputation." My boyfriend cut in, calm but firm. "You didn't think about reputation when you abandoned a 9-year-old at an airport," he said. "Don't bring it up now." My father's eyes flashed with anger, and I felt it the moment the conversation shifted. Because they weren't here to apologize. They were here to control the damage. They were here to make me back down. And the longer I stood there, silent and unshaken, the more desperate they were going to get. I looked at their faces, tears, rage, panic, manipulation, and I realized this storm was just beginning. They stood on my porch for nearly 20 minutes. 20 minutes of rotating tactics, like a rehearsed performance they'd perfected over decades. First came tears, then guilt, then threats wrapped in concern. My mother sobbed until her voice went hoarse, pressing her hand to her chest like she might collapse right there if I didn't save her. My father shifted between rage and wounded pride, reminding me how much they'd sacrificed for me growing up, how ungrateful I was being. Morgan stayed quiet at first, watching, calculating, until she realized crying wasn't working. Then she switched to bargaining. "We can pay some of it back," she said quickly. "Not all at once, but—" "No," I cut in. My voice was steady, distant. "You don't get to negotiate now." That word "now" made my father stiffen. "So this is it?" he snapped. "You're really going to destroy this family?" I didn't raise my voice. "You destroyed it," I said, "the moment you left my daughter alone in an airport." Something dark flickered in my mother's eyes then. Resentment. Sharp and ugly. "She wasn't in danger," Linda hissed. "Security was everywhere. You're exaggerating." Behind me, I heard a soft sound. A door creaking. I turned just in time to see Anna peeking out from her bedroom hallway, eyes wide, breath shallow. My chest clenched. That was it. I stepped back inside and closed the door firmly, locking it. Through the door, my father shouted, "You can't just shut us out." But I already had. And when they finally left, angry, desperate, defeated, I sank down against the door and let myself shake for the first time. A month passed. Not a single payment. Not a single apology. James filed the lawsuit exactly as promised. The prosecutor's office formally charged my parents and Morgan with intentional child abandonment, adding fraud considerations based on the ticket deception. The word trial became real. Suddenly, everything had weight. Every email, every recording, every camera angle. Anna asked fewer questions, but she watched everything. Kids always do. She started therapy twice a week. Some days she came home lighter. Other days, she came home silent. One night, as I tucked her in, she asked quietly, "Are they mad at me?" I swallowed hard. "No, sweetheart. They're mad because they got caught doing something wrong." She thought about that for a long moment. Then she nodded. The trial began 2 months later. The courthouse was colder than I expected. Dark wood, high ceilings, the kind of place that makes everything echo, even your thoughts. My boyfriend held my hand as we walked in. James walked ahead of us, calm and focused. Across the room, my parents sat stiffly with their attorney. Morgan sat beside them, eyes red, jaw tight. But what caught everyone's attention wasn't us. It was the man seated behind us. Tall, brown-haired, nervous but resolute. Morgan noticed him at the same time I did. Her face drained of color. "Lucas," she gasped, half rising from her seat. The bailiff ordered her to sit. Lucas, Morgan's ex-husband, didn't look at her. He looked straight ahead. I hadn't invited him out of spite. I invited him because of Harper. James had warned me early on. If Morgan went to prison, Harper could be placed in foster care unless another parent stepped in. So I found Lucas. And unlike Morgan, he showed up. The prosecutor laid out the case carefully, methodically. They described the $15,000 transfer, the absence of Anna's ticket, the CCTV footage, the recorded phone call. My mother took the stand first. She cried. She said they never intended to abandon Anna. She claimed Anna disappeared for 20 minutes and they were about to miss the flight. Then the judge asked one simple question. "Do you have proof you attempted to contact Amanda before boarding?" My mother stared at the floor. "No," she whispered. Then the video played. My father directing Anna to the vending machines. 2 minutes later, my parents and Morgan gathering their bags and leaving. 5 minutes after that, Anna returning with water in her hands, confusion written across her face. The courtroom went silent. My father didn't testify. Morgan did. She said it was a misunderstanding, that Anna was independent and smart, that they assumed I would come get her. Then the audio recording played. My father's voice filled the room. "That's right, we all agreed. She was too slow." Morgan broke down crying. The judge didn't. The sentence was delivered with surgical calm. 1 year in prison for each defendant. Mandatory repayment of all borrowed money within 60 days. Asset seizure and liquidation if payment failed. Morgan screamed. "I have a daughter," she sobbed. "She needs me." Before the judge could respond, a voice rose from the back of the courtroom. Lucas stood. "Your Honor," he said clearly, "I'm Harper's biological father. I'm prepared to take full custody while Morgan serves her sentence." Morgan turned toward him like she'd been struck. "You can't do this," she hissed. Lucas didn't flinch. "A woman willing to abandon a child doesn't get to raise mine," he said. The judge recessed briefly. When she returned, her decision was final. Morgan would serve her sentence. Lucas would take custody of Harper. Morgan's future contact would be supervised, pending counseling and review. When the gavel fell, I didn't feel triumph. I felt heavy. Justice isn't clean. It just hurts the right people instead of the innocent ones. 2 months later, the money was recovered. All of it. The loans, the trip cost, interest. Their houses were sold, their lives dismantled. And still, none of it erased the way Anna flinched at sudden sounds, or the way she held my hand in crowded places like it might vanish. 3 years passed. Anna turned 12. She laughed again, freely, brightly, but the scars remained. We adjusted our lives around them. Morgan moved away after her release. My parents shrank into a quiet apartment somewhere I never asked about. Harper lived with Lucas and visited us sometimes, 2 girls slowly healing together. I thought the chapter was closed, until the doorbell rang one Sunday afternoon. And through the camera, I saw my parents. Older, thinner, tired. My mother begged to see Anna. I said no, not out of hatred, out of protection. They left crying. That night, my phone rang. It was Uncle David. My mother had late-stage liver cancer. 2 months left. And now I stand at the edge of a decision I never wanted to make. Do I let them see my daughter one last time? Or do I keep the boundary that saved her? That's where my story pauses. And maybe where yours begins. 2 months. That was the number that kept echoing in my head after I hung up the phone with Uncle David. 2 months until my mother would be gone. I sat on the edge of my bed long after the call ended, my phone still warm in my hand, staring at nothing. My boyfriend sat beside me in silence, not rushing me, not filling the space with opinions. He knew better. This wasn't a decision anyone could make for me. I don't know what to do, I finally whispered. He reached for my hand. Then we don't decide tonight. But sleep didn't come. That night, I lay awake listening to Anna's breathing through the baby monitor we never stopped using after the airport. Every inhale reminded me why I'd built walls so thick around our lives. And every exhale reminded me that my mother, the woman who once braided my hair before school, who packed my lunches with notes inside, was dying. 2 truths can exist at the same time. That doesn't make choosing between them easier. The next morning, Anna noticed something was wrong immediately. Kids always do. She sat at the kitchen table, pushing cereal around her bowl, watching me with those observant eyes that had grown sharper since the trauma. "Mom," she said carefully, "did Grandma call?" I froze. My instinct was to protect her, from the truth, from the weight of adult decisions. But I'd learned something important over the years. Silence can hurt just as much as honesty. "No," I said gently, "but Uncle David did." She waited. I took a breath. "Grandma is very sick." Anna's spoon stopped moving. "Like hospital sick?" she asked. "Very," I replied. "The kind where doctors don't think she has much time left." Anna was quiet for a long moment. Then she asked the question I'd been afraid of. "Does she want to see me?" I nodded slowly. Anna didn't cry. She didn't get angry. She just wrapped her arms around herself and stared at the table like she was looking at a memory she didn't want to touch. "I don't want to be alone with her," she said finally. Her voice didn't shake, but her hands did. My chest tightened. "You wouldn't be," I said immediately. "If anything ever happened, I'd be right there. And you're—" I paused, choosing my words carefully. "And my boyfriend would be too." She nodded, but her face stayed serious. "Would I have to forgive her?" she asked. That question nearly broke me. "No," I said firmly. "You don't owe anyone forgiveness. Ever." Anna thought about that. Then she said something that told me exactly how much she'd grown. "I don't hate her," she said quietly, "but I don't feel safe with her either." There it was. The truth. Not anger, not revenge. Just a child protecting herself. I pulled her into my arms. And in that moment, my decision stopped being complicated. I called Uncle David that afternoon. "I'll meet them," I said calmly, "but Anna won't. Not now." He tried to persuade me, gently, respectfully, but I didn't budge. "I'll listen," I continued. "I'll give them closure if that's what they need. But my daughter's safety comes first." Uncle David sighed. "I understand." We arranged the meeting for the following weekend. Neutral ground, a small cafe near the hospital. Public, controlled, safe. When I walked in, I barely recognized my parents. My father looked smaller, like gravity had finally caught up with him. His hair was almost completely white now. His hands trembled as he wrapped them around a coffee cup. My mother looked fragile. Her skin was pale, almost translucent. Her eyes were sunken, but when she saw me, they filled with tears instantly. "Amanda," she whispered. I sat down across from them. Not close, not far, exactly where I needed to be. "We know Anna isn't here," my mother said quickly, like she was afraid I'd leave if she acknowledged it too slowly. "We understand." I nodded. My father cleared his throat. "We didn't come to argue," he said. "We just Wanted to say we're sorry. The word landed awkwardly between us. Sorry. I waited. So did the silence. Finally, I spoke. Do you know what she said to me the day it happened? I asked quietly. My mother shook her head, tears already falling. She thought nobody wanted her anymore, I continued. That's what you did. That's the scar you left. My father's face crumpled. My mother sobbed openly now, clutching her chest. I was wrong, she cried. I was so wrong. I thought everything would be fine. I didn't think. No, I interrupted, still calm. You didn't care enough to think. The words weren't shouted. They didn't need to be. They sat there heavy and final. I'm not here to forgive you, I said. And I'm not here to rebuild anything. I'm here because I don't want regret to be the loudest voice in my head after you're gone. My mother nodded through tears. I understand, she whispered. I just wanted you to know. I loved her. I love her. I stood. She deserved better than love that abandons, I said. Goodbye. And I left. That night, I went home and held my daughter while she slept. I watched her chest rise and fall, her face peaceful in a way it hadn't been for years. I didn't feel guilt. I didn't feel regret. I felt resolved. Some doors don't need to be reopened to prove you have a heart. Sometimes the bravest thing a parent can do is keep them closed. A month later, my mother passed away. I didn't attend the funeral. I sent flowers. A simple card. No name. No message. Just acknowledgement. That was enough. Today, Anna is older, stronger, still cautious, but no longer broken. She laughs loudly now. She trusts carefully. She knows this truth deep in her bones. Love doesn't disappear when you protect yourself. And if there's one thing this story taught me, it's this. Family isn't who shares your blood. It's who would never leave your child alone in a crowded world. If you were in my place, what would you have done? Would you have opened the door one last time? Or kept it closed to protect the future you worked so hard to save? Thank you for listening to my story.